I think I'm saying that we struggle all our lives to answer it. That it's the struggle that is important. That's what helps us to define our place in the universe.
This is Beverly, Dr. Beverly, Dr. Beverly Crusher. Honest.
Forceful.
Trusting.
Brilliant.
Strong.
And adventurous.
And this is Crusher Convo. Hello and welcome to Crusher Convo, where we are crushing the conversation one episode at a time. Tonight, Mariner taps into her inner light while Tendi is visited by a legacy in the science field. I am going to be discussing Fully Dilated, which I am unsure exactly what the title had to do with this episode, but it definitely made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. So let's go ahead and get started with this clip. I'm so excited.
Curious. I'm Lieutenant Commander Data. Who are you?
Oh, hi. I'm Lieutenant Junior Grade Tendi. It is so nice to meet you.
You have no uniform. Are you a member of Starfleet?
Yes, I serve on the USS Cerritos. But right now we're stuck on Delmer 3 waiting to be transported out.
My shuttle crashed.
I don't know about you guys, but when they found the purple, head of Data, I was kind of excited because I was like, okay, if they decide to, as she did, she hooked him up to a wooden box and cranked him up and he came alive. I heard Brent's voice and I was super, super stoked. So I started loving this episode. First off, before I continue, we have Chuck. Hey, Chuck, how are you? He says hello. And then there's Patrick. Crush that convo. That's my goal. And I know you guys are going to be recording here soon. So, maybe we might have some similar thoughts here. I'm going to check Instagram, and we actually do have someone in that is watching SesRes56. So thank you for joining. But yeah, I was super excited. I don't know about you guys. And there was a lot that was going on. And the A plot was much bigger than the B plot, which the B plot was just really Boimler and Rutherford trying to get the Micheladas off of the transporter pad, or the console. But the whole thing with, Mariner and Tendi and T'Lyn being stuck on that planet, it was really nice. I thoroughly enjoyed this one much more than last week's. But I wanted to actually mention real fast, and this was kind of perfect timing, and I think Mike did this on purpose. Mike McMahon, who created Lower Decks, he posted on Blue Sky today about how this kind of came about, okay, or just how special it was to him while he was creating this. So there's, as you guys can see, there is a list of, let's call them tweets or posts, I guess we want to call. I don't know what we call over at Blue Sky, but here is his thread happening. And he said, in 2008, back when I was an assistant, setting meetings and getting coffee, I used to imagine that I could write a TV show, but never that I could write a Star Trek show. And so I greenlit my own parody TV show, the Twitter feed of the TNG Season 8, imagined episodes of the lost season of The Next Generation, which felt both canon, but also silly. A lot of those tweets were about my favorite best space pals, which was Geordi and Data. And he did a little snippet from his tweet. And it said, it says, Troy guides a dying ensign through his final emotional journey. Data and Geordi are trapped on a conference room table by a scary dog. Okay. He continues going and says that TNG Season 8 was an early template of Lower Decks. And this year I got to work with Brent Spiner, who brought a new and more purple version of Data to life. Brent was so kind and funny and pitched jokes and alt version of lines and was generally an awesome dude. He came into the record studio excited to be on Lower Decks, which fucking ruled. Sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this. It says, if you're creatively inspired, make stuff without permission. Just do things that make you happy. Work with people who are better than you are and be enthusiastic. I really wanted to share that because I thought that was super cool because, I actually have that. This is basically the lost season of The Next Generation, his tweets and stuff like that. And if you definitely should probably buy it. I got this off of Amazon. And it is funny, it is silly. It's just kind of one of those things where he just imagined his imagination of how he thought The Next Generation should have continued in season 8, right? And and we've seen his other shows. We've seen Rick and Morty, we've seen Solar Opposites. And so that is just the style that Mike has, but he still carries that heartfelt, emotional journey that Star Trek has, right? He doesn't lose that in the midst of the jokes and the silly banter and anything that's going on. So I really, really loved how his dream just basically came true. He's basically saying, don't give up. I didn't think I was ever going to have a Star Trek show. And look at me now. When I had my interview with Mike, he was disappointed, yes, that the show got canceled, but he was grateful that he got to do 50 episodes of Star Trek, and he's always going to hold that dear. And so even just having this moment with Brent was just really exciting and fulfilling for him. And it was fulfilling for us because as Next Generation fans or just fans of Star Trek, we know Brent, we know Data. Data's super special to so many people. So to have him in this episode was so great. And I think, again, I wish and I hope that maybe Mike was pulling my leg when he said that he couldn't write Beverly into Lower Decks, which makes sense because of just the situation that Beverly's in at this moment. But because of this whole was it dimensional fissures and the rifts and things like that, we might have an alternate universe Beverly at the very end. I don't know. I'm praying that it might happen. He wasn't sure that they even got canceled till more closer to the end. And so I'm crossing fingers, guys. I'm just saying. I'm not grasping, I'm not grasping at straws here. I'm not holding on to hope, but I'm just a little, maybe just a little hold. Maybe I am holding on to a little bit of hope. So, but yes, so I think that's what made this episode super, super special. Now, they had a lot of references in this one, and I kind of wanted to break it down a little bit. So they talked about Star Trek Voyager's Blink of an Eye. They talked about TNG's The Inner Light, Time's Arrow, and Justice. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but and I can't remember the exact quote that Mariner had said. She said Ito something because she had gotten thrown into jail because she poked the guy's eye, and so she was talking about how horrible the justice system was, and so she said Ito, which was episode Justice. And then of course she also mentions Carbon Creek, which is the Star Trek Enterprise episode. And I was happy that I caught that reference because I just saw it. I'm in the middle of season 2 of Enterprise. So I was like, hey, I know what episode this is. Back of the chat, Patrick says, hi, Chuck. And Chuck is saying, hi, Patrick. So they're having a little friendly fun in the chat. And then Chuck says, yay, Data. Yes, absolutely. Everyone has a super favorite character, no matter if it's on TOS or TNG or just in any of the shows. But I feel there are certain characters that everyone just has a love for. And I think Data is one of them. And because I don't know of a fan that I've run into that just I'm not a fan of Data. I don't think that's true. I mean, Data was so special in the way of also his arc. Okay. And so I think that, I just think that it was just very special to have him on here and to be one of those legacy characters, because Mike did mention that there was going to be legacy characters in this season. I think there's going to be more. But this one was definitely special. So let's just go ahead and jump in. I've already talked too much about Data. So it was already starting instant TNG, right? Because they're talking about the Purple Enterprise D, a bunch of clones of Tasha Yar. Apparently they were fighting Chuck. Yes, Tasha Yar. and I was like, okay, well, that's cool. They're mentioning the Next Generation, and then they're about to close this fissure. And of course they noticed that this planet, which I believe was called Delmar 3, that something was left there and they had to go grab it because this was a pre-warp society, so they didn't want to prime directive situation, right? And of course, I guess there's an A, B, and C plot. So let's put the C plot with Boimler and Rutherford with the whole, transporter malfunction. The B plot, I guess, would be Tendi because she was up for this senior science officer for the bridge, but so was T'Lyn. Okay, so that was her whole story. And then Mariner, and the A plot was them being down on that planet, and then Mariner was just kind of trying to figure out, her own inner light story, her own, because she was talking about, oh, this reminds me of Picard and how he was stuck in that probe for 25 minutes, but he lived a whole lifetime because this whole planet was going, every second that passed was like a week for them or something. And which is a reference to that Voyager episode, Blink of an Eye. So I think as the girls are getting ready, there's a Tiana moment where she was just really pissed off that she had to turn them into these aliens. And she got to say the McCoy thing. She's like, I'm a doctor, not a whatever the F this is. Okay. So she had her moment there. And I did like when they were talking about Voyager, because they mentioned, they're like, oh yeah, this is just like what happened on Voyager. Well, time was going faster in the planet than on the ship. And then Mariner made a joke of something like, oh, just like what happens when I'm watching a play or something. And I love theater. My husband does not. And so I made the reference of like, that's my husband, right? But I kind of was thinking about Beverly because I think she kind of started the whole, let's do plays on starships. And now they probably do it everywhere. And people like Mariner are not very happy about it. Yeah, the C plot, like I said, was about Rutherford and Boimler and talking about the red pad. Rutherford is growing a beard. I don't know why. And I'm trying to think if that other version of Rutherford had a beard. I know he was more machine than human, but I don't recall him, growing some facial hair. So that was interesting. And it was kind of just like a quick little throw in. But, of course, they send the girls down and instantly Boimler makes a mess because he was holding a Michelada, which it kind of looked like a margarita / Bloody Mary type thing that's going on. Maybe Bloody Caesar. But they make a mess, and the only reason why they were drinking it was because of off that red pad. That was the other alternate Boimler's favorite drink. And then they made a mess and they're trying to fix it and they're freaking out. So as they're doing all that, 5 minutes passes for the boys before they get the girls back. A whole year passes for them. So that was very, very interesting. And let me see here. Oh yeah. So when the girls show up, we already know that Tendi is having this competitiveness with T'Lyn. T'Lyn, of course, is like unaware of this competitiveness. And Tendi is just worried that she's going to go ahead and get the position because she's just doing these remarkable things. Like she started juggling rocks. Didn't even know she could juggle rocks. She started, while they were down there, she built a windmill and created flour. And she started doing, agriculture and things like that. And so for Tendi, she just felt kind of like, I'm not good enough, right? But then she got into the point of like, she was forgetting what she was good enough or what she was good at and, completely missing the point of everything. Chuck says, I've talked to Brett several times at conventions. I've only got to met Brett once. And he was super nice. And, I just went in there and got his autograph. It was actually for my daughter. That was the one person she wanted an autograph from. And he was that was the moment when I had brought the poster and he was like, Gates needs to sign the Pulaski photo, Diane Mulder. And I was like, I don't think that's good. And she's going to be probably wondering about that. Holodeck 4 and Sci-Fi Remnant has joined over on Instagram. Hello, guys. But yeah, so that was my experience with Brent. Which when I told Will Wheaton that story of what happened with Brent and Jonathan, that's when he started laughing. He's like, I love my family. We have such a dark sense of humor. So, but let's go into the whole Tendi and Data stuff. So as we know, Tendi's having a competitive moment. She is not thinking straight. And of course, she decides to hook up Data's head. I'm not really sure why she decided to hook up Data's head, but I know she, as you saw in the clip, it worked, and they were introducing to each other. And she was explaining, she's like, I really have questions about science. And so I think in her mind, like I said, she thinks she's not good enough. She thinks she's going to lose this position that she's been dreaming about since she was little. And she thought that getting information from Data, who is a remarkable, not only was he a machine, but he, grew in a lot of human traits, and just, he had a very great journey, and she wanted to learn from that. But one thing that I don't think Tendi realized was that, his buddy is Geordi, and even no matter what dimension they are in, they're clearly still friends. And he had Geordi, they had each other, which I think is what he ended up teaching her, was like, T'Lyn is your Geordi, right? Or let's say Data is T'Lyn and Tendi is Geordi, and they're like, you have each other, you guys balance each other very well, and you need to remember that. And so I think that was a really good message that they had for these characters. And I also realized in the middle of this, while I was watching it for like the third or fourth time, their Data's gone. That Data died 3 years before this, because I believe we know that this is 2382 and Data died in 2379. And so this is a huge deal for Tendi, and then later on Mariner, to meet this purple version of Data, because they knew how cool he was and how great he was in Starfleet, and how inspirational he was in many ways. And so this was an opportunity for them to be able to just learn, because they didn't get that chance with our Data, right? So I thought that was very, very cool, which is why I was like, oh, maybe we can have Beverly Crusher at the end. Again, I'm 99% sure it's not going to happen, but I got that 1%. So now for Mariner, she's on this whole journey, right? Where she is just like, all right, let's go. Let's do this. She was very excited to go onto this mission until she found out it was taquito night, and that she was going to miss it, but that's a whole other story. She wanted to try and find her family. Okay. So she was trying to use this experience to, like, what Picard went through. Right. Of course, he already had a family. He didn't have to go look for it. But she's all like, I need to find my family. She's like, I didn't find a husband or a wife or a friend or this, and she was kind of freaking out. And because she was trying too hard, she kept getting thrown in jail, which is why she made that Ito joke after she got out the first time. Okay. Because apparently they're very, you make one little mistake and you get thrown in jail. Though the second one, I don't think it was a little mistake. She did burn out their internal flame. So I'm surprised she was able to get out when she did. But what was interesting is because she was in jail for like 2 months the first time. And then who knows how long she was in jail the second time before she got out. But those prisoners that she was with, she got to know them, and they got to know her, and they liked her. And he's calling her Big Mare or something like that. No, it wasn't Mare Bear. That was another episode. I wanted to say Big Mare. That's what he called her. And when she was like, I haven't found my family, he's like, we're right here. And she's like, oh my gosh, it is you guys, where I think this was just kind of like a quick little thing of, you never know who your found family is going to be, right? You never know how that's going to turn out. But then she left. She's like, sorry, guys, can't get you out. I got to get out of here. But the thing is, her story was a little funny, because then she even made a flute out of soap. Okay. And she's trying to learn it. Like, she was trying to be Picard in this moment, and it just wasn't working. But I think she learned a little bit in that moment, because again, she was trying so hard, she kept getting thrown in jail. But that's kind of Mariner, right? She's get thrown in the brig all the time because she kept making mistakes or kept not wanting to listen and stuff like that. And then she's at this other planet pretending, not being herself, and she gets thrown technically in the brig. So yeah, I thought that was interesting and all that. But for T'Lyn, hers was kind of cute because she kept doing all of, like I said, she built the windmill. She learned how to grow fruit and all this stuff. And she was doing it because she noticed there was something wrong with Tendi, right? T'Lyn has grown a lot these last couple of years. And she even mentioned, she's all like, you chose to be on the Cerritos. I got left here. She's like, I still have a lot to learn. But I think the whole moral, the story between these two is that it's never been a competition. It's always been Tendi and T'Lyn. Now, if you remember, when T'Lyn first came on, Tendi wanted to be her best friend. That was her goal. And I think T'Lyn has learned so much from Tendi that Tendi has kind of, forgotten that a little bit. And what was interesting is that because they were with the data head, the purple data, for this whole year, he even noticed that you guys actually work well together. You guys are kind of one, just like the whole Geordi and Data, right? So, but I thought it was cute because she's like, well, I was doing all this stuff because I thought it would interest you and it would get you out of this rut because I don't know what's wrong. And but Tendi was just in such a competitive mode that she didn't even realize it. Captain's Quadrant, what's up, bud? Hello. I know you guys are going to be going live here soon, so thank you for dropping by. You guys will be talking about this episode, and so hopefully we'll have kind of the same thoughts here. I know last week we kind of did. This one I think was just extra special for everybody, and it's just, one of those things where when you throw in a legacy character like Data, everyone's going to have, warm and fuzzy feelings. So let's talk about Snell for 1 second. So Snell, the creeper guy, and I know why he was there, but he was really annoying. He was really annoying. I don't know. I don't know. Wasn't feeling it, but I understand what they were trying to do. Right, because they got caught. He thinks they're witches. It's this whole thing. This actually, I'm going to add this to my list of episode references. This kind of reminds me of, oh shoot, guys, help me in the chat. It's where Data loses his memory. He's in that pre-industrial society, and they are all getting poisoned by radiation. Kind of the same thing, right? Because those villagers, they were sus about Data, and it was just one of those things where they ended up killing Data at the very end, because that's where Beverly and Riker had to go down and try and find him. But so that's what Snell's trying to do. He's trying to figure out, like, why are they here? What's going on? What's happening? And he's going to try and destroy them and do, because they kind of jumped to conclusions. He thought they were witches, not that there is science behind everything. So Captain Quadrant says that Mark Twain one, that was Time Zero, which is what, that was mentioned with Data saying he was stuck in the 19th century. I'm talking about the one where Data lost his memory. He went to go get something had crashed. It had radiation. He had to go get it. Beverly was in the captain's chair in the beginning. This is where Troy becomes a commander. She goes through the test. I can't think of the name of the episode. I'm trying to remember, but I think there's a little bit of this in that situation of where, that lady was all about, she was a doctor, I guess, but she didn't really know much about science or how all this stuff works, and even some of the stuff she was wrong. Thy own self. Yes, thank you, Patrick. Thy own self. That's what that was the episode. But I do have to agree with Captain's Quadrant and Patrick. they say that this is probably the best episode of the season, and Patrick agrees it was a great episode. I absolutely, I love it. I think it was great. I don't think it's, well, I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know if it's the best episode, but it's definitely up there. It's one of those episodes that I can just go back and watch over and over again, and that's what's enjoyable about it. And actually it reflects on the tricorder rating that we're going to be getting here in a second. But yeah, so there is a bit of thine own self in this episode. And Snell, of course, they kind of felt bad because they made him out look like an idiot again, but they were like, they already suspected there was something wrong with Snell, and this just kind of highlighted it. And, unfortunately, it's just going to make it worse because he thought he was onto something, which he was, but because they weren't ready for this kind of stuff, they had to let that proceed. I think I do remember, the fully functional joke that Tendi said to Data. So, Snell knocks out to Lynn. Tendi wasn't sleeping. Data was off, and he ties them up, and he's gonna go get the mob to come and get them. And when she asks Data to like chew on her ropes, he's doing it because he saw Worf do it once. And she was like, "Oh man, you are fully functional." I was all like, "Oh boy, they just had to throw that in there." Back on Instagram, Rashid, hello. He says, "Seeing Data in this episode warmed my heart. Data is my all-time favorite character in Star Trek." And yes, thine own self. Thank you. I just could not think of the episode name, and I hate when that happens, especially when I'm live. But that's what I'm saying. Data is such a special character that it was so nice. Data is actually my husband's favorite character. So I popped it on for him yesterday because he was off. It was Thanksgiving. And I was like, you got to watch this episode. I think you're going to like it. And he did. But yeah, it was definitely a lot going on, but it was really, really good stuff. And of course, there was just snippets of the C plot, which was Boimler and Rutherford trying to get that Michelada off the transporter pad or the machinery. But so that was, it was just silly. That was just the silly part for them. So yeah, they trick Snell. And then, of course, at the very end, Tendi and T'Lyn are actually sharing the position. So this was what was really sweet, is when they finally get back, of course, they're pissed off at the boys because they had brought that Micheladas into the transporter room, and you're not supposed to have anything to eat or drink there. And when the Purple Data was talking with Carol, he had mentioned, he's all like, since I've been with them for a year, he says, I want to, speak freely and tell you my observations between the two. And Carol agreed. It just seemed like that instead of just having one of them be the senior science officer on the bridge, it seemed like both would be a better option. And it's not that one of them couldn't do it on their own. It was just like the position is better to be filled with both of them instead of just one. And that just kind of reminded me of Geordi and Data, which I think is what Mike was trying to accomplish, because that was his favorite friendship, between those two. And so it was highlighted with T'Lyn and Tendi in this. So yeah, I definitely think overall this episode was amazing. I was super, super happy with it. And of course, now the boys owe the girls because they left them down there for far too long, because they're so obsessed with that red pad. And I'm wondering if that's going to hurt Boimler in the end, because he's been so obsessed with trying to be like this alternate Boimler. And we've noticed that there are slight differences still to the other Boimler. But because this mistake happened, I'm just wondering what's gonna happen at the end of all this when it comes to, does he realize that he doesn't need to be the alternate Boimler? I'm sure. but I'm wondering what might play into that, because he's not really supposed to have the red pad, right? And then there's this whole dimensional rift thing. Someone's opening it on purpose, that I'm wondering if something bad might happen. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I think, we kind of need to pay close attention to those little details. Chuck says, my favorite episode of the season. So far, this is the top-notch one. And I honestly, guys, I'm going to have to say it's all because of Data. But I really loved the Tendi and Data stuff. I think that in itself was really, really great. And like I said, I really enjoyed the parallels between the two friendships, and just more Mariner stuff of finding who she is, and then Boimler just still being Boimler, and just there's all those different things, and how Data played a role in getting understanding T'Lyn and Tendi that they needed each other. So yeah, I think that was absolutely great. Rashid says Tendi and Data together was wonderful to watch. Yes. And Holodeck 4, yes. Casey, yes, we are talking about the latest episodes of Lower Deck. So if you have not seen it yet, please turn away. Spoilers. Ahead above everyone else. Is that a pun, Chuck? Are you throwing a pun in there? Because that's a good one. I thought it was actually kind of funny that they strapped Data's head into one of those giant probe things and shot him in. But I did think this, and I'm wondering if you guys thought this too. So the Purple Enterprise D was fighting clones of Tasha Yar. Okay. Somehow this Data was in a shuttle and he crashed. Why? Why did he leave the Enterprise D? What was the purpose of him being in a shuttle and crashing? Was it because they were fighting clones of Tasha? I don't understand, because it's not like shuttles are fighter pilots. They're not X-Wings. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, because we still don't know who's even opening these rifts, right? So that kind of made me question of just what was going on. I don't want to say this Purple Data is evil or anything like that, but there clearly just seemed like, why was Data in the shuttle and caused him to crash? Why did he leave? So just another thing to ponder. We only have 3 episodes left. 3 episodes left. And so it's getting near the end. And so now there's questions that are starting to pop up that I'm wondering how those are going to be answered. Chuck says, absolutely, that was a pun. And he also said, good question. So yeah, let's see what happens, especially in this next episode. But as everyone says, everyone loves this episode. So did I. I think this was just a highlight of why we just love Lower Decks, right? So back to Instagram, Holodeck 4 says that I saw it. She says, I recognize his voice instantly. So pleasant. And yes, Rashid, Ensign Kim's episode to come. That's right. We saw Harry Kim is going to be showing up in one of these episodes. So I'm wondering if he's going to be near the end or maybe in these next 2. But yeah, I am super, super excited about that one, because there's going to be different Harry Kims. Maybe he's the one that opened it. I don't know. But that makes sense, because there's going to be multiple different Harry Kims, and these rifts have been opening multiple different versions of different characters. So we'll see what's going on there. Again, 1% hope for a Beverly Crusher, but I know Mike said no, but he could have just been lying. And that's what I'm hoping for. I hope he lied to my face. Hey, Will Wheaton did it for like 4 years. He lied to our face that that was no Wesley Crusher, and then Prodigy happened. So I gotta just, have hope about that whole NDA situation. Because I wouldn't mind an alternate universe of Beverly Crusher. Maybe a mirror universe, because I've been wanting that for years. And I know everyone else does too. So yeah, I'm just wondering. But let's go ahead and jump into our tricorder rating.
My tricorder.
So as you can see, we are not the only ones that think this is an awesome episode. 26 votes and 85% gave it 5 purple androids. 15% gave it 4 soap flutes, and then 0% for 3 gobblers or 1 to 2 micheladas. I'm going to give it a 5. I don't really do that very often, but Data kind of just tugged on my heartstrings a little bit, and I loved all the references to TNG in even Voyager and Enterprise. Like, there was just a lot that meshed, like all those different episodes meshed well into this one with the Lower Decks humor, right? But as Rashid said, it definitely it tugs on the heartstrings. It makes you just warm and fuzzy inside and all this stuff. But it's just one of those things that this makes me even more upset that the show got canceled because Mike was so good at bringing that humor and the good part of Star Trek. So yeah, I think that's just makes me more disappointed of what had happened. Now Rashid says, I love how the characters mentioned previous episodes in the Star Trek in every episodes of Lower Decks. Yes. And as TNG lovers, it was very special. Holodeck 4 says she has to run. So good night. Thank you for stopping by, Casey. But yeah, so we're not alone. We all thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah, I'm curious of what these next ones are going to be. Definitely going to have some Voyager references if when Harry Kim comes. But let's go ahead onto our Redhead Alert. I'm here to talk about Trek Talk. So January 18th is the telethon that benefits the Hollywood Food Coalition. You can find them on socials at Trek_Talks, and you can subscribe to their YouTube channel at Trek Talks Telethon. All this information is also at trektalks.net. They posted a wonderful video yesterday of John Billingsley talking to Jonathan Frakes, Armin Shimmerman, and Kitty Swink about how much food they have provided for the homeless. And of course, we have John, along with Bonnie Gordon, will be hosting the event. So mark your calendars. And then there's also my information. So you can find me on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Like and subscribe here on YouTube for more Crusher Convo content. You can find me on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and TikTok at Crusher Convo. Also, you can buy me a coffee or you can become a Patreon member for as low as $3 a month. And my Patreon shout outs go to Chuck, who is in the chat with me today, and Engineer Mark. Thank you for your support. And you can buy my merch on TeePublic, like that Be Kind Like Crusher design that you just saw on the previous slide. That will support Trek Talks next year. Now, currently there is a Black Friday sale, so snag those deals while you can. And of course, all this information is on my website at crusherconvo.com. So yeah, guys, another great episode. Super excited about these next ones. Very bummed that it's almost over. And I just think Mike always had, as you saw in his thread that he had on Blue Sky, he just understands the assignment. Okay. And a lot of these showrunners, as you know, the Hagerman brothers or Aaron Walke, Terry Metalis, like they get it. They get it. They are fans. And it's one of those things that I just thoroughly enjoy these newer Trek shows because they are carrying on that legacy. It has nothing to do with, it has a little bit to do with nostalgia, but it's not just like, oh, let's bring back the old Enterprise D and just, have warm and fuzzy feelings. No, it's part of the story and it makes sense. And that's what I've been really enjoying about Lower Decks is because he just knows how to put it in and make it make sense. I do want to give out a shout out, and I believe it's Nami that is doing the music. I know she did the one for Prodigy, but I don't know if she does the one for Lower Decks, but I really did enjoy the music because it had the TNG score mixed into it when they had Data pop up. So whoever the composer is, should have looked that up. Absolutely loved it. I thought that was great. So good night, Rashid. It's 1 a.m. So please get some rest. You can see the rest later. Thank you so much. But yeah, so next week's episode is called Upper Decks. So who knows if there are more promotions in our favorite junior grades future, or something more crazy is about to happen. I will be here next Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So come and join me live. And not only are we finishing up the final season of Lower Decks, but we are also wrapping out season 2 of Crusher Convo. And I feel that this has been a really amazing year, and I have all of you to thank for it. So thank you guys so much. But yeah, thank you. I had a lot of people in the chat today. I had Patrick and Chuck and Captain's Quadrant, and we had Holodeck 4 and Rashid. And I hope I'm not missing anybody else, because I feel like there was just a lot going on. But yeah, guys, this was just a really great episode. Can't wait for next week. Can't wait to hear Captain's Quadrant, which is going to be going live here soon. And maybe I can send something to Patrick here in a little bit while they record for It's Got Star Trek. So check them out. As always, live long and prosper. Bye.
Crusher out.